It's the Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Establish a regular bedtime. If you can get them going to bed within about half an hour of that bedtime consistently, it's much healthier for them. It's better for their inhibition. It's better for their impulse control. It's better for their memory. It's better for their body.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
So the other day, I decided to listen to Osher Gunsonberg. Is that his name?
I love that you're struggling to say. I love that you're struggling to say this. So, context: we've been nominated, as has Osher, for best parenting podcast in Australia.
See, everybody calls him Osher.
For the
why do I
upcoming
need to know his last name? Everybody knows it's Osher.
I knew him when he used to work for Brisbane's B105, and his name on air was Spidey.
Oh, is that? Oh,
do you remember Spidey?
I remember the name.
Okay, well, but Osher Ginsberg.
Okay.
So I love that you're struggling to say that. But the other day we were talking about Ryan Reynolds and his wife, and I said Blake Lively. And you gave me a really hard time after the podcast was finished. And you're like, it's not Lively, it's Lively. I'm like,
is it? I don't even know.
Reminds me of that great Jackie Chan clip that's become a meme when he runs into the room and he says cheese instead of freeze. He's got the gun and runs in and says, cheese!
Cheese! What? Freeze! A freeze!
Anyway, we digress. I was listening to his podcast because I didn't actually even know he had a podcast. And now that we're standing in line with him, I thought it would be, the right thing to do to kind of have a listen. And he and his co-host were talking about bike riding.
This is on Dad Pod.
This is on Dad Pod.
Yeah, so Osher loves to ride his bike. I don't think he's quite as serious about it as I am, but...
Well, he must be because he's got a number of bikes, but he's had an injury, so he can't ride at the moment. So anyway, they were talking, and Charlie, his co-host, has just gotten into bike riding where he lives. There's not really anywhere to do long rides, so he's pretty much just commuting.
There's great riding around where he is, but he's only new to it, and so probably doesn't quite know enough. But anyway, I digress. Sorry. I'm sorry. I care about riding.
And Charlie is public about the fact that at the moment he's seeking help professionally from a psychologist and just, kind of starting to work through some challenges there.
And if you'd like to hear more, just go and listen to Osher and Charlie talk about it on Dad Pod, who have also been nominated. And what are you trying to do? Like send more people to them? We're supposed to win this award. Come on.
But he acknowledged just how much he's loving bike riding and how before he started it, because Osh had been encouraging him to get a bike for a long time and he just was like, whatever, I'm not doing that.
And you know how I feel about my bike.
He has publicly acknowledged that he will never be a mammal.
Can I just jump in as well? My bike is back. My bike is rebuilt. My bike has a new paint job. My bike is safe from the undercover car parks. I'm never putting a bike on the roof again. Oh, it's so good to have my bike back. Just putting it out there.
Then Osher shared a little bit of research around just why riding in particular is so good for your health. There's actually that physicality of forward movement and how that affects our brains. And I was just thinking about how over the last few weeks since your bike has been
damaged and indisposed and needing a repair job.
In the hospital, how much you have struggled more than usual. And it occurred to me that as I listened to them talk, these two dads just having a bit of a conversation around it, how bike riding has kept you mentally healthy. It's kept you in check. It's given you an outlet. It's given you that adrenaline, and it's just given you a capacity to work through all of the busyness that goes on in that brain of yours outside of the house.
So we're like 3.5, 4 minutes into this podcast, and I get the sense that what you're actually doing is you're saying, for the last 15 years, you've been telling me that bike riding is important to you, Justin, and I've been mad at you for bike riding, but I've listened to Osher talk to Charlie about bike riding, and now I'm apologising to you for giving you a hard time about bike riding. Is that what I'm hearing? Am I hearing a wife apologising to her husband publicly and saying you should ride your bike more? You're a nicer person when you ride. Is that what I'm hearing?
You definitely are a nicer person when you're riding. You're much easier to live with. I think for me, as a mum, and I would suggest that lots of mums go through the same process.
Right.
When I feel overwhelmed and I feel busy, the first thing I drop is me time.
Yes.
100%. And over the years, as I've listened to you struggle and feel time poor and feel pressured when it comes to work, in my mind, it just makes sense. Get rid of that, because that's a wishy-washy, kind of on the want list,
Well, yeah,
not the need
it's not
list.
productive. If you've got deadlines, you've got to meet the deadlines.
That's right.
And I've been saying for years, I feel better, I function better when I wake up at 4:30 in the morning and go for a bike ride.
Yeah, the problem is at the other end when you fall asleep before your head's even hit the pillow.
That's right.
But yeah, so anyway, this is my attempt at apologising. I'm doing it very publicly.
You are. I love this. This is amazing.
But as I'm learning more about myself and recognising just how important it is to find a healthy balance between doing things that actually fill my cup,
Yeah.
but also being able to be there for my family and do the things that are important to help our family function. I'm recognising more and more just how important it is for you to have that outlet. And
Oh, thanks, hon.
I'm letting you know that I won't stop you.
Well, I feel much better now that I'm riding my bike again as well. And it's a nice new colour because I had to get it repainted because I crashed it into the car park. Let's not talk about that anymore. But I feel like I've got a brand new bike. I feel like I've got a brand new lease on life now that my bike is back and I'm riding it. It's fantastic. But
So I guess the main thing here is that you need to probably thank Osha.
okay, thanks, Osha. Thank you, Osha Ginsberg. I do want to. I think that ties in neatly with our conversation today, and we've kind of used up way too much time dragging that apology out of you unexpectedly. But our conversation today is how you're supposed to do it all when you're so tired. And I want to talk about sleep today. Specifically, I want to talk about how we need to teach our kids to not be as tired as we are. I want to talk about the brain science of sleep. When I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning so that I can go for my bike ride or my surf when the surf is good, by about 8:30 at night, I'm kind of cactus, right? I'm pretty well done. I've had an active day. I've been exercising and then I've been working and speaking and creating content, using my brain and writing books and all that sort of stuff. And then in the afternoon, it's you and the kids and dinner. And oh my goodness, by the time I get to 8 p.m., I'm not really doing so well anymore. And so we make a big deal about making time for yourself. And you're the same, right? I mean, you're getting up at about 5 so that you can have your meditation time and your solitude and your walk and exercise and reading time so that you're ready for the kids once their morning gets underway. And then your day's full on. I mean, running the household that we run and making time for me so we can record podcasts and things, there's a lot that you're balancing and juggling. And so we are incessantly, never-endingly exhausted. And I want to talk about this idea of being exhausted, being an adult, but also teaching our children to be healthy around their sleep. While I was doing some prep for today's episode, I haven't told you this, but I found a National Geographic article about exhaustion, the history of exhaustion. And what it shows is that for millennia, people have been saying, I'm really tired. I need to get some sleep. I found this. It says, in the Middle Ages, the cause of depleted energy was demonic possession. In the 18th century, it was excessive. I don't know if I should mention this because kids might be listening, but it was excessive self-stimulation, I think would be the word that they've used here. In the industrial age, capitalist fatigue. Many ages, writes Anna Katerina Schaffner in Exhaustion, A History. Many ages tend to present themselves as the most exhausted, as if exhaustion were a badge of honor and competing for the title of the most shattered was a kind of sport. So exhaustion's been around forever and ever and ever. There are all kinds of cures for exhaustion. I found this really bizarre cure here. It said Renaissance scholar came up with lots of bizarre recipes for Renaissance energy drinks with ingredients like pieces of gold and parts of rare animals. Some theories said you should avoid eating whale flesh.
Oh, glad we do that.
And others said drinking red wine is harmful. The rest cure was very unappetizing. Lots of milk and lots of red meat. The idea was to fatten up the patient. There was a nasty gender dimension to it because it was mainly women prescribed the rest cure. They were isolated from their friends and family and asked to fatten up. You won't be so tired if you rest and fatten yourself up. We know better in 2022, and I thought we should talk about how we can get our kids and us to be less tired than we are.
It's probably completely off topic, but I actually think if we want our children to be less tired than we are, we actually need to model what it means to not run faster than we're capable, to not fill our days with so much that we actually do flop into bed at night.
I love the irony of what you've just said. We need to, if we want our kids to be less tired than we actually are, we need to show them how to be less tired than we actually are.
Yeah.
But
Right, like they're watching us.
of course they are.
They're watching us. And everything we do inevitably is teaching them what we value.
Last week in our Doctor's Desk episode, we talked a lot about screens. There was a study that I didn't talk about that I wanted to, but time kind of got the better of us. And it was a study that comes from the University of Maryland. These researchers collected data on 8,300 children who were aged 9 to 10. And the specific focus of their data collection was how much sleep they got at night and what it meant for their success years later. And what the research found was that children who had insufficient sleep, that is less than 9 hours per night, at the beginning of the study had less grey matter or smaller volume in certain areas of the brain responsible for attention, memory, and inhibition control compared to those with healthy sleep habits. And those differences persisted after 2 years, which is obviously a really concerning finding, suggesting that long-term harm exists when you don't get enough sleep. Like if you don't have the capacity for attention, you can't focus on what you're learning. You can't remember what you're being taught. You're not going to do well at school. You're not going to do well at life. And if you've got impulse control issues caused by lack of sleep, you're going to get in trouble. And I mean, it's an absolutely awful prognosis.
Well, it sounds like a bit of a checklist for ADHD.
Yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
anxiety as well. So what we really want to emphasize is get enough sleep for kids. Let's say your kids are aged between 6 and 12 years. They really should be getting somewhere around, I'm going to say 9 to 12 hours of sleep a night, preferably the upper range. 9 is really low. 9 hours is the absolute minimum that they should be getting. You definitely want them getting more than that. And research tells us clearly, establish a regular bedtime. If you can get them going to bed within about half an hour of that bedtime consistently, it's much healthier for them. It's better for their inhibition. It's better for their impulse control. It's better for their memory. It's better for their body. So let's say 8 p.m. is bedtime or 7 p.m. is bedtime, 6:45 to 7:15. Keep it within 15 minutes either side, a total of 30 minutes in and around that bedtime. That's ideal. There's so much data on getting enough sleep and making it consistent every night, same bedtime. So important, while still having an appropriate level of flexibility.
So we've talked about sleeping on the podcast before,
Yeah.
and we've focused heavily on just, how important it is with sleep hygiene to, that our children get enough sleep.
And how to get them to sleep.
But why is sleep so important?
I'm going to talk about a couple of things. So it's restorative. Okay, we get our energy back. We're ready for a new day. But something happens in our brain when we sleep. It's like sleep cleans our brain. During the day, our brains are active, they're busy, and they're creating a whole lot of what ultimately becomes waste product. But it can't get rid of it during the day. We need to go to sleep so that during our sleep time, the brain can flush itself essentially and prepare itself for a new day. That's what needs to happen during sleep. If we don't get enough sleep, the brain can't flush itself properly. You know, when you wake up in the morning and you're really foggy, like everything's hazy and you can't get out of that fog, it's because your brain hasn't had the opportunity to fully flush itself. And we need to go through those sleep stages. There are 4 sleep stages, and we've got to go through those stages of sleep a number of times through the night so that our bodies and our brains can function well. When we're asleep, we consolidate memory, we consolidate learning. Our brains prepare us for the next day and for our lives. It's just so important that we and our kids are getting enough sleep. We cannot function properly on low levels of sleep.
So I guess for the time poor parent who just wants answers now, I'm wondering, how do we help?
Well, you said it already. We've got to be good at it ourselves. So long as we as adults are getting somewhere around 8 hours, like once upon a time, sleep and being exhausted and saying, I survive on 5 hours of sleep a night. Once upon a time, that was a medal of honor. I think that we've moved past that quite a lot. Many people that I talk to now are really proud of the fact that they get a solid 8 hours, but not enough of us are doing that. So I think the first thing I would say is turn off the screens at least 30 minutes before bed, preferably more. Don't look at them at bedtime. Just don't. And get your 8 hours. Like, how much better are we when we have 8 hours of sleep?
It's funny, I would always have said that I needed more than 8 hours sleep. But my body clock literally wakes me up every morning at the same time.
Yeah.
And I get my 8 hours.
Do you know what happens as well when you don't get enough sleep? Like, let's say tonight we're up late, there's a lot going on and we only get 6 hours. And then tomorrow night, because life is busy, we get our usual 7.5 hours. And then the next night, it's another 7.5 or 8 hours or whatever it is. You never quite get back the sleep that you've lost.
Yeah, you feel like you're in deficit.
That's right. And we actually accumulate sleep debt. And that sleep debt is associated with neurological difficulties later in life. There's research that shows that people who are crowding sleep out of their lives, who are treating sleep like it's a luxury item, are at significant risk compared to those who get enough sleep of physiological brain differences and cognitive markers that suggest problematic outcomes later in life. Like, it's just so important. So we don't want to accrue sleep debt because we can never actually pay it off. It's not like you go at the end of the week, oh, you know what? I missed out on about 6 hours sleep this week on each night. I missed an hour here and half an hour there. So on Saturday, I'm just going to have a big 6 hours sleep in the middle of the day and catch it up. Doesn't work like that. And if you did, you wouldn't get to sleep on Saturday night because you've slept for 6 hours during the day. So we've got to be a model of it. Get our 8 hours, keep our devices off, establish regular bedtimes for us and for our kids. And then, I mean, this is all so perfect in theory and so hard in practice. And then keep things level, balanced and even so that the kids can get the sleep they need and we can get the sleep that we need. We'll all be better off for it.
So the other night, all of my big children were out of the house. You were away and it was just me and Emily. Can I tell you, that was just the best.
You're right.
Trying to get an 8-year-old to sleep when you've got a house full of teenagers who
playing music, banging on the piano,
different body clocks and, different
arguing
sleep
with
needs.
each other. Yes.
It was just blissful. We got to play a game together. We got to read a book together. She went off to sleep peacefully. She woke up just as peacefully the next day. So it just highlights how important that structure and duration of sleep makes such a difference to the outcome.
Yeah, and making the evening nice so that everyone's ready for sleep and willingly going off to bed.
That's right. My house was nice and quiet. The lights were dimmed. It was clean.
Yeah, right. Just
it
ready
was
for
bliss.
bed. It makes me feel like a nap right now. We so much appreciate that you enjoyed the Happy Families podcast. Thank you so very much for listening. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. If you'd like more info about how to make your family happier, please visit us on our Facebook page, Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families, or sign up for our Happy Families newsletter at happyfamilies.com.au.